It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. He has the morning off. He returns Sunday night, Monday morning. I'm Gary McNamara, and I am here in the house for a Friday morning. I've been so busy, so much stuff going on, I can't even tell you. I know there was one big upset. I know Kentucky lost, but other than that, normally I will, always sit down at 11 a.m. and start watching all the games and just too busy, too much going on. Too much going on in the real world. But let me tell you this, though. Whenever we get, like today, I'll probably end up watching some of it today because I have just a great memory of March Madness. But it's not what you think. It's not about basketball. Nothing to do with about basketball. It was the second day, the Friday, back in 2000, on which would have been, again, the second day of March Madness, that I made the decision to come to our flagship station, WBAP, and if that had not happened, I wouldn't be part of this show. So there you go. So whenever I think of March Madness, especially day 2 of the first week, that's what is always on my mind. Because whenever I say this, people go, no way. I really was thinking of getting out of talk radio. Believe it or not, I was living in Oregon, and I had other job offers outside of talk radio. And an old friend who had tried to hire me before, found out, oh, you're available? Well, just come on and sit in for a couple of days. Just come in and sit in for a couple of days. And they even paid me. So it was, wasn't like it was a tryout in a way just to see whether I fit. And so I did the show for a couple of days. And that's when we went out. And I'll never forget my old boss, Bob. He had tried to hire me twice before, and I turned him down. And I'll never forget afterwards, he goes, so how did you feel? I said, I felt great. So you felt comfortable? And I went, yeah. And he said, well, we feel comfortable too. And I went, great. But not going to offer you a job. I said, okay, fine. It's whatever. And I'm looking at him. He said, because you've turned me down twice, and I'm not going to ask you, and then you have you turn me down a third time. I went, all right, so what you're saying is I have to say I want the job first. And he said, yeah. And I said, I want the job. And then 2 months later, would have been May in 2000, I was here. And then the rest is really, really bad history, especially when I decided to go on with Eric. I'm kidding. But, yeah, so when I think of March Madness, that is always on my mind. And it would have been the wrong decision for me not to do that. It's just at that time, I loved living in Oregon. No, I didn't approve of the insane liberalism that's there, but I just loved there, and I had great offers. And we got into the discussion yesterday because when I was talking about the United Steelworkers endorsing Biden, and I might have been a tad critical of that. I always get emails, people saying, oh, I just thought you were always in radio. And it's like, no, not at all. And even at that time, I wasn't really as, I guess, excited about talk radio as I am now. And I've been, I think, upfront and blunt about this many times before. It wasn't until I started working with Eric and, just the format and everything of this show where I really embraced it. Because I thought, even when I first came here, I always thought that if you did a show alone, you have more freedom than if you do it with a partner. That if you have a partner, you lose some of your autonomy. And because the other person is there. Doesn't matter who it is. And I was wrong about that. In fact, if you have chemistry with a co-host, as I do with Eric, and Eric and I knew that after the first week, we said, this is really easy. It's not like you have to fight it. And I have been in music radio where I had partners on morning shows. And so you have had that feeling of, is there the chemistry that works? And I have no idea, and neither does Eric. The only thing that we've said is we have the same kind of thought process. But that only goes so far. You have to have a sense of the other person just in the back and forth. How quickly can it go back and forth? Are there pauses? Do you know how to respond? Well, after working 19 years, it'll be in July with Eric, we laugh because I think he probably does it more than I do. We both do it, but he finishes my thought all the time. And it's like he's never wrong when he finishes my thought. If I say, well, I think that, and just pause for a second, he'll finish the sentence with that pause. And that's what happens when you work with a co-host. When you sense that moment of silence on them, from them, it's like, oh, okay, it's time for me. And it's not really something that, it's sort of an unconscious thought process. It's instinct tells you when to do it. It's not like you're thinking, oh, there's the pause. It's time for me to talk. And so at that particular point, it's hilarious because it's like, my God, he knew exactly what I was thinking and finished my thought. And that's just wonderful. And the other thing is when you work with a co-host, as I do, where nothing is territorial, that mindset never enters your mind that I need to get, my opinion in before he gets his in, or vice versa. There is no jealousy. If Eric has the great point 5 times in a row, I'm not sitting in my mind, I got to come up with 5 points here. And so it's really the unselfishness when I started working with Eric, and the unselfishness that you feel when you're in the studio doing it was obvious to me. And we've often said, when one of us starts going on a rant, the other just sits back and smiles and go, all right, I'll talk in another 10 minutes. And so that's what makes it so wonderful. So, yeah. I wish he would have been here yesterday and today because there's so much going on. Every time, if he's gone, it's like, oh, man, I wish he was here. And then Sunday night when I talked to him, I'd be like, oh, I wish you were here. God, you missed this. And I know we would have had, just great segments on this and that and this and that and this and that. And I will say this, that a lot of times after we, you go into a commercial break, we'll just look at each other and go, how did that happen? Because we have no idea how it happened. And it's the by-play back and forth that you have that you don't fully ever understand. Because we get that from people all the time. You guys, you've got chemistry where it's almost as if everything is scripted. It doesn't sound scripted, but it has to be scripted because you can't do that. And it's like, is it scripted? We go, no. We have rough outlines, and we'll read, quotes and paragraphs and things from articles, and sometimes we'll read an entire article if we think that there's a great point being made. But no, nothing is scripted ever, and that's the beauty of it. And you finish it. Here's the thing with this show, and for me, it really started about 12 years ago when we became part of Westwood One, and for some reason, everything just clicked. But that's the wonderful thing is you finish it and you don't know how it happened. And I never had those moments. Not that I was a bad talk show host alone, but I never had those moments of such incredible joy when you go into a commercial break and you look at these, you go, wow, how did that happen? And then you look at the email and Twitter or whatever, and people say, well, that was good. How did that happen? I don't know. And that's the greatest thing. There's a great mystery of chemistry. You can't figure out why it works, but you know it works, and you don't want to screw with it. When I started on this show 19 years ago, my goal was to stay a year and get out. I didn't want to stay doing this. It was like, no, get on a national show for a year and see where you can, catapult your career after this. Never did I, in a million years, did I ever think that I would still be here doing it and loving it as much as I do. And so, having Eric as my co-host, to me, is one of the greatest gifts that I've ever had in radio. And when I started this show, I guarantee you, my thought process was, I'll be retired. I'm not going to work past my normal retirement age. Now, one of the things that did change about that was because 19 years ago, I thought, oh, man, I love doing this, but when I retire, it's going to be great. I can golf every day. I get out there and I can golf every single day. And then, I'll go visit my family up in New York, go for the holidays. And when I go for the holidays especially, man, I can go skiing for 2 weeks. I had no idea that my knees, my elbows, my hips, that nothing would be able to handle that kind of thing when I got to be this age. And so it ends up that, I can't do those physical things that I thought I would enjoy. But I can still do this. And this is even more fun than all of those things. Oh, yeah, I did put on Twitter yesterday. This isn't why I'm talking about this, but I did put on Twitter yesterday. If you want to check it out. Me hitting the golf ball for the first time in 17 weeks. So, knees feeling good. But there you go. But, yeah, so with the March Madness and the second day that it is right now, today of the first week, it just brings back great memories and benchmarks, for example, in my career, which are like, wow, if that hadn't happened, what would I be doing? I can't imagine me doing anything else that I would like as much as this. And I don't mean just in a career. I just don't know anything that I would like as much. And Eric and I talk about this all the time. How and this gets into something that another article that we'll get to here in a little bit. I was in National Review talking about the happiness index, and the writer is saying seniors, older people are really happy with their lives. Young people are not. He goes directly to the smartphone. If you look at when young people started getting smartphones, it's almost right to that year that they're just obsessed with smartphones. And young people aren't as happy as young people in the past. And the question is why? What changed? My life growing up wasn't easy. We've talked about it many times. I worked 2 jobs for the first 20 years of this career. And so it's like, I should have been sad. Many of us should have been. We weren't sad. Why not? What's the difference? But the joy that I get out of this is just, again, great. And Eric and I talk about how just obsessed we are with just gathering as much information during the day, that there is this excitement level that I swear at times is an addiction. It's a good addiction, but it's still an addiction. And I say a good addiction because if your mind is always scanning, you're always scanning to find out what's going on here, what's going on there, what's going on there. In life, that's a good thing because what you're saying is, I need to learn what's going on, and learning is always good. But the best thing is, and I always say this to people, I say this to my nephew and my great-nephew, and I said there was nobody on this planet Earth, no one except my older brother John, who hated homework more than I did. I hated homework, and I thought to myself, I can't wait till I become an adult, and I'm not going to have to do any homework at all. What do I end up doing? A job where all you do 24/7 is homework, constantly. You never stop, and you're addicted. It's not like I guess it would be, in a way, required to do what we do, but that's not how we view it. It's like an obsession. It's like an addiction. Those are the interesting things in life. Man, my whole life I wanted to get out of doing homework, and I pick a profession. That's all you do is homework. Yeah, that's life. We got a great show ahead. So much going on. The scenes at the border yesterday in El Paso. Wow. Those are things that, again, have the potential to change an election. Chris Christie not running on the No Labels Party. 70% of Palestinians support the Hamas's October 7th terrorist attack, which is why you'll never get a deal, which is why Democrats are delusional on that. EVs costing, you see how car insurance is going up? One of the major drivers of your automobile insurance going up is electric vehicles. And the more electric vehicles that the government mandates to be put on the road, the more your auto insurance is going to go up and up and up and up and up because, as we find out, gas-powered vehicles across the board on so many areas, you're paying to subsidize for an electric vehicle. That and more coming up. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Make sure your fluids are at proper levels ahead of spring. Fluid is to trucks what blood is to the human body. Low fluid can be just as harmful as no fluid, and the damage this will cause to your truck is unavoidable. Pay attention to your engine oil, coolant levels, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, brake fluid, and differential fluid.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome to a Friday. Also coming up on the show, you saw that Planet Fitness story that their value plummeted $400 million after the whole transgender controversy. We'll get to that. Also, as the House debates a transgender bill and just all the insanity of it. Also, the budget deal coming up. Oh, and I was thinking, since the last segment I was talking about, it was 20 years ago on the second day of March Madness that I decided to come to Texas, and I would have never ended up working with Eric if that hadn't happened. You know what the topic was? What the topic was 24 years ago right now? Because it was like, whoa, can you believe this? This is unbelievable. Gas prices crossed the $1.60 benchmark. That's what it was. I'll never forget coming here, and like I said, I filled in just for a couple of days locally on our flagship station, WBAP. I'll never forget, because that's one thing you think, okay, I got to come up with something for this audience. What is there? And it was like, oh, gas prices just shot up to over $1.60 a gallon. All right. And on the way in, I saw like it was a 337 here, and I know the gas prices are now starting to go up because of the summer blends. And we'll see what the summer driving season brings, but AAA talking about the fact that gas prices will continue to go up, and that's not good for the Biden campaign.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley. He has the morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome to a Friday. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you want. You know, I wanted to tie a couple of things together that one we talked about, and the other I saw on social media a lot this week. And we were in a discussion yesterday about the Bobulinski hearings. Well, it actually wasn't the Bobulinski hearings. I mean, Bobulinski was the main witness and got most of the publicity. Of course, it was the impeachment inquiry about influence peddling at the White House. But we talked about how many in the media didn't cover it. And we said, and we've talked about the culture that exists in liberalism to censor things. And as we have stated, anything that happened with Donald Trump, the conservative media never, to a great degree, I'm not saying no one did, but I would probably say 95+% of the conservative media, when there was an accusation against Trump, would cover what the accusation was about. Even if it wasn't favorable, they would cover it and say, okay, what's really going on? But you see the culture in liberalism to censor. I was, John Stossel had he's always got clips on X, formerly known as Twitter, and he was talking about censoring on the left, and just saying, that when Trump, for example, won so many things on Super Tuesday, where you had the liberal media come out and say, we're not going to cover that because he puts out too much misinformation. And Stossel said, and Joe Biden doesn't? It's like, come on. And the liberal media doesn't lie. Only Donald Trump lies. Are you going to censor your own lies? Of course, it's ridiculous. But it was obvious, and everybody knows, every Democrat listening right now knows, that if there was an impeachment inquiry on Donald Trump for influence peddling with China through his son, one of his sons, and his son's business partner was testifying to verify emails that already existed and communications that already existed, because one of Trump's sons was involved in organizing all of the influence peddling with China. There would have been no other story for a month. And we all know that. And so while that was going on, I noticed that the old George Carlin clip was going around again that says this. Carlin said, keep in mind the news media are not independent. They are sort of a bulletin board and public relations firm for the ruling class, the people who run things. Those who decide what news you will or will not hear are paid by and tolerated purely at the whim of those who hold economic power. If the parent corporation doesn't want you to know something, it won't be on the news, period. Or at the very least, it will be slanted to suit them and then rarely followed up. Now, that's been all over, this week, as if it applies to both sides equally. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We talk about, if you look at what is the conservative media out there, you may see, Fox, but there's a lot of other very influential media outlets out there. For example, we've talked many times about National Review. They promote a conservative viewpoint, but as all their writers and opinion writers will tell you, they're told up front, write whatever you want. That's the format. Write whatever you want. Wall Street Journal editorial page, I agree with 90% of the time, 10% of the time, I'm like, come on, guys, what are you doing? But I'll tell you one thing. In a time where the people believe that everything is controlled because we're more into conspiracy theories than we've ever been before. We have more access to information and the truth, yet conspiracy theories. Now, maybe there's not more of them, but they're more easily promoted because of social media. But if you look at the conservative media, which really, if you look at the conservative media, and I'm not saying that Fox isn't important, but you look at a great day at Fox, and an incredible day at Fox would be if the Fox News Network, if 3 to 4 million people listen. And National Review, I don't know how many people actually read National Review. I think it's a great magazine. I've subscribed to it. I pay for it. There's two media I pay for. One is National Review. The other is the Wall Street Journal. Not necessarily for their news section, which is much more liberal, but for their opinion and op-ed pieces. That there's a variety of different viewpoints on there. But overall, when you look at it, what really has a bigger audience than all of that maybe combined is conservative talk radio. Now, there are many different hosts out there, from the national to the local. But I'll tell you this, for the most part, and I would say again, I probably could use the 90% or more figure out there. Even if you work for a major corporation, nobody's telling you what to say. I always give the example. I don't even use Eric and myself. I say, anybody think that anybody's telling Mark Levin what to say on the radio? Now, Mark is part of our company. Mark works for Westwood One. But you think anybody's telling Mark what to say? Eric and I always go back to that caller that we got one time that said, I believe you guys, are just, reading what the conservative talking points are. And so we asked the guy, this was on the air, I said, well, do you believe, like at 9:30 every morning, that Eric and I wake up and we get that email from whoever's controlling all the conservative media of the talking points of what we have to talk about on tonight's show? And the guy said, yes. And, of course, when you're in the line of fire, it's expected, you're going to get pounded and people are going to throw accusations at you. Now, the funniest one is that with a guy that called one time and said, we all know you guys are billionaires. Eric and I looked at each other and went, what? But most conservative talk show hosts, I mean, you have the ones out there that have made tens and tens of millions and millions of dollars and may not live the lifestyle of the average person. But I'll tell you this, most conservative radio talk show hosts on the local level, and even, you get up to our level even, we live quite normal lives. None of us live in mansions. We live in regular homes. We live in regular neighborhoods. The majority of the companies that I have worked for in my talk radio career, the majority of time that I have worked in talk radio, I've worked for liberal corporations. Well, and I say liberal corporations, the fact that their management is liberal. Eric and I work for Disney. This show, Eric and I when we were put together, that was Disney. Disney owned us at that time. And never interfered, ever. Because when it gets down to it, and things have changed now. You see the liberal media will go down a road that we're going to keep promoting these ideas, or we're going to continue to censor as they're going bankrupt. And it's like, what? But every corporation that I've worked for, whether I'm not sure what their politics are or whether they may be conservative, for a short period of time, I worked for the radio division of what eventually became Sinclair, and they're known as more conservative. But everybody else almost that I've worked for has more of a liberal bent in the people that run the management. But they understand that conservative talk radio is a format like any other format out there, like country, whatever. But nobody tells us what to say. Nobody tells us what opinion to make. I had one general manager that did one time, And we got into a little bit of a loud debate in his office. I say loud because everybody in the station heard it, and everybody in the TV station, because we were in a building with the TV station, everybody heard it. And I became a legend because of it. And he, wanted to change the topics of what I was talking about. And I said, no, if you don't like it, fire me. And management came in the couple of days later and backed me on it. But there's a great deal, and I think this needs to be said. I'm not saying that this doesn't exist, what Carlin said, because it does. I'd be lying to you, because it'd be obvious, and a perfect example was yesterday. Why would they all ignore it? Because Carlin said, they will tell you're not going to carry this. How does that happen in so many of the media where they decide we're not going to carry this story, or we're not going to tell you the truth, or they lie to you, or lie plus, which is gaslighting to you, that they gaslight. Not only do they lie to you, but they insult you. They try to make the point that you're an idiot, that you're stupid if you don't buy into the lie. And as we say, we're in a situation now where in liberalism, the person talking knows they're lying. They know that the media watching knows they're lying. They know the people that are watching on TV or listening on radio know that they're lying. Everybody else knows that they're lying. The person lying knows that everybody knows that they're lying and continues to lie and then gaslight and insult everybody as if, why aren't you buying into this lie? Which, again, is not a way. If you don't have credibility, you're not going to probably be successful long term. But in conservative talk radio, for the most part, like I said, probably 90 plus, maybe 95 plus, it could be greater than that. There's complete autonomy. You're an individual talking. And that's the beauty of talk radio, and that's why it has to exist in the United States. Because it's the one thing that goes against, to use my old liberal friend, the plutocracy of the media, where the corporations control everything. Well, they don't control. They may have a format that is conservative talk radio stations, but it is not like liberalism where they censor things. They may have a lot of the same opinions, but as I found in conservative talk radio, we cannot get away with what the liberals do. We cannot make a statement and then not back it up. The audience won't stand for it. And I think the audience understands the autonomy of the individual talking on the radio, even if they work for a major corporation, is different from the behavior that you see massively in the liberal media today. So just wanted to let that out because I had, especially after yesterday in the discussion we had, and then just seeing that George Carlin cut all over the place. It's true to a point, but it is not true for the conservative media for the most part. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Coming up on the top of the hour, the liberal, radical, insane transgender movement hit the news again yesterday as Congress debating a bill that would say biological men can't play in the Women's Olympics. So, and more than the Planet Fitness story out there. Also, Trump and the huge fine, the $460 million fine. And the question that we have that still has not been answered, when can he go to the Supreme Court on that? Now, it's in the Court of Appeals right now. We'll see whether they get a stay on that fine. My question would be, if the state of New York has that law that you can't appeal until you put up the bond for the fine. It's got nothing to do with the federal government. Why can't Trump go to the federal courts immediately, or because it's of such urgency, go right to the Supreme Court of the United States, because you're talking about the leading candidate, a former president, and the leading candidate right now for the 2024 election, and you can make a great case based on the outrageousness of the fine of election interference, violation of your Eighth Amendment rights. And my question would be, are they waiting till she says, okay, we're putting a lien or we're taking over your property now? And at that point, that's when Trump is damaged and more likely to get a response from the federal courts? That more on the way.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show. Good morning. Welcome to a Friday. Well, the insane transgender movement came up again yesterday, and what they are promoting yesterday. The House debated the Protection of Women in Olympic and Amateur Sports Act that would prohibit any governing body recognized by the U.S. Olympic Committee from allowing biological men to participate in any female athletic event. Play a little bit here just from Congressman Jeff Van Drew talking about it yesterday in the House chambers.
You know, I think I have a sense of what America's about, and I'm a dentist, but you don't have to spend years of study in medical school or dental school, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. There's an undeniable physical difference between men and women. There just is, anatomically. I'm not mentally, I don't know what people think. I have a rule of thumb for myself, and what I believe should be true. I don't care what people do in their bedroom, but I don't want it forced on my kids, and I don't want to have to pay for it. This country and the left have contorted reality to a great degree, so much that a bill like this is actually necessary. Think about it. Think how hard so many of us fought that so my daughter and my granddaughter have a right to compete. Title IX, we know all this already. And to take individuals who anatomically, regardless of how they feel spiritually, mentally, whatever other way, and I can't speak to that, anatomically still have a different muscular structure, have a different bone structure, are just different. They're not women. They're not biological women. And to make our young women who need to have this opportunity to compete against them is just wrong.
So that was Jeff Van Drew yesterday. I want to play this other audio cut that I saw, and I don't know if it was yesterday or not, but since we played yesterday some audio cuts of Senator John Kennedy in some just classic moments, this is John Kennedy talking to a Democratic witness who basically opposes any restrictions on abortion. And they get to the whole point of the birthing persons. And I think it's important just to play this part of it just to bring all elements of this insane debate. And the insane part is coming from Democrats and just, covering all of it across the board.
Just tell me, if you could implement any rule, what restrictions, if any, you would put on abortion.
Senator, arbitrary restrictions put women's health in danger.
So that means no restrictions?
Senator, healthcare needs to be driven by medical practice and medical
I
standards
agree.
of care.
You don't believe in any restrictions on abortion?
Healthcare needs to be driven by medical standards of care.
Now, the first thing is, why can't they ever answer the question? Just say, I want no restrictions. Why can't they answer the question? But this isn't the whole topic here is not about abortion, but it's just fascinating how they believe in it so much, but cannot tell you how they actually believe in it. They can't be blunt. Why not? Because the American people won't accept it. But here's more.
Well, your website says you support abortions at all gestations. So
that is correct, because
you support abortion
abortion needs
without
to be made
any
available
restrictions.
based on medical standards of care.
How about, could you get it, if the mother's healthy and the baby's healthy, would you support an abortion the day before birth?
Senator, that is not how abortion care works, and it's really dangerous. That rhetoric is really dangerous for the people who are
It would be
confronting
okay
these
with you, wouldn't it? I find that astonishing.
Senator,
I noticed
that is
it
really
on your
offensive.
website,
That is really offensive.
You
to the
issued a
people
press
needing
release.
to access
You don't
abortion
refer to
care.
mothers. You say at your organization, you don't refer to mothers. You call them birthing people. Is that right?
That is among the language that we use.
Yeah,
Yes.
what's the difference?
A birthing person is someone who's in labor and delivery.
Okay, that's a mother, right?
So for sure, the majority of people who are pregnant are cisgender women. And at the same time, we have to acknowledge that trans people and non-binary people do and can become pregnant. And it's really important not to misgender them in law and health because it is really dangerous to them.
Okay, right there. That's the other point I wanted to bring up because you hear that all the time. When we go back, it was Tom Cotton, I believe, that was interviewing about a year and a half ago, a professor from Berkeley. He was trying to figure out, the whole transgender movement. And she said just the line of questioning itself is transphobic. He goes, I'm asking questions about, truly wanting to understand what's going on here. And you're saying that I'm somehow immoral or evil for asking questions on something. And her point was that if you even question it, then somebody may commit suicide who is transgender. And I've always found that interesting because, as we know, the misogyny and the sexism, the women hatred in the radical transgender movement is obvious for everyone to see. And we have seen it with the Ivy League swimmers. We've seen it. The intimidation, the threats to destroy your life if you at all get upset. We've seen it with Raleigh Gaines, that if you say, no, it's wrong to do this, well, then we're going to destroy your life. So it's like, okay, this person, you must agree to be a misogynist, hater of women, and if you're not, then you're evil, because if you're not a misogynist and a hater of women, the people that believe that way might commit suicide. My God, what insane thinking. That's like me coming on the air and saying, I'm a racist. I'm a racist. And if you don't acknowledge my right to be a racist, and if we cannot put racist legislation in the books in Congress, then I'm going to commit suicide. Oh, really? Well, my God, then you have the moral high ground here. We didn't know you were a racist to the point of committing suicide. But now that you're a racist to the point of committing suicide, well, then your thought process must become law in this country. Completely insane. And even when Jeff Van Drew said, I'm sorry to say this, but what do you mean you're sorry to say it? You don't need to apologize. The people that have the insane thinking are the Democrats, almost all of them in Congress. because almost all the Democrats in Congress believe that biological males should play sports against biological females, and they also believe and promote that if you say as a biological male, you are a biological female, well, then you are. And as Eric and I have brought up many, many times before, in that case, as we said, feminism, the liberal feminism has died completely in this country because they've all capitulated to the fact that now, if you are a feminist, you must have the opinion that a biological male gets to define what a woman is, which is pure insanity. Every single Democrat knows that. My question would be to the Democratic voter that you know this is insane. Why do you allow that to happen? And the other point, and this cannot be discounted, that if the Democratic Party so passionately sticks to something that is so misogynist, so promoting the hatred of women, so promoting the insanity of perverting science that a biological male can be a biological female. Now, we know what they do. We know that when you call them on it, they go, no, gender is different than sex. Then you would be saying that a biological male, if you truly believe that, you would say, well, then a biological male can't compete against a biological female because gender is what you think you are and biological sex is what you actually are, scientifically speaking. They can't say that. But if they think this way, this insane, pure insanity on this issue, then everything that they believe, you have to question. Because when you have, on such a topic like this, such an insane argument, then I have to question your sanity on every other argument. Now, Van Drew was right. He goes, I don't know spiritually or mentally, who knows why this happens. Nobody really knows why it happens. They don't know. Are there people that actually are biological men that in their mind believe they're biological women? Yeah, I think some do. Is it something in their mind? Is it culture? Well, there may be a combination of both. Who knows? But to say, because really one of the most insane mindsets of the Democrats is that you can't even discuss this. You can't even question and say, well, why do you believe this? Because if you do, somebody who is transgender may commit suicide, and therefore it doesn't matter whether they are preaching a sane idea or an insane idea. The fact that they may commit suicide, and by the way, don't even call it a dysphoria anymore. Don't call it any type of mental condition, even though they're admitting that the rate of suicide and suicide attempts is way greater for transgenders than the normal population. Nothing they say is consistent in thought. It's impossible to connect the dots. And so they've actually come up with a thing. Let's just take every position on it to defend this. Let's say that biological males should compete against biological females because there's no difference. But when someone says you can't do that, what you're saying is a biological male is a biological female, and that's not true. No, we're not saying that. We're saying that gender and biological sex are different. No, you're not, because you're stating that biological men should compete against biological females. And your answer is if they can't, even though it's unfair, then they may commit suicide. That's the argument. So instead of saying we need to have compassion towards people that think this way and get them the professional help that they need based on their own argument, they're saying that women, the concept of a biological woman should be wiped right off the mat. that it shouldn't even be discussed. And if you wish to discuss it, then in some way you're immoral and evil. Give me a break. For God's sakes, give me a break. But if they think this way, and remember, because of the equity bill, 99% of Democrats voted for it. They are all behind it. We know the Democratic voter isn't. Why doesn't the Democratic voter question the insanity of this on a consistent basis? Why do you let the Democrats get away with that insane mindset and insane debate points and arguments that every single Democrat listening right now knows that it is? 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper, as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Continuing on news from the insanity of the Democrats' support for the insane radical transgender movement that defies everything in science and logic. Planet Fitness critics are again saying, go woke, go broke. This is from Fox Business News, calling on the top fitness chain to receive the Bud Light treatment after an uproar over its transgender locker room policy created a social media stir. The chain saw a $400 million dive in valuation from $5.3 billion to $4.9 billion just days after revoking an Alaska woman's membership for snapping photos of a transgender woman, a biological male, shaving in the women's locker room, according to a Daily Mail report. Patricia Silva's issue was first reported by the X account of the Libs of TikTok, which has since continually urged gym-goers to boycott the chain and blasted the company for creating unsafe spaces for women. On Tuesday, the account shared an update regarding the valuation drop. The Planet Fitness saw $400 million wiped off its value since we broke the story. This is what they wrote, Libs of TikTok, of them allowing men in female locker rooms and then banning the woman who exposed it. Turns out people don't want to support companies who cave to gender pseudoscience and allow men in women's private spaces. Good God, a couple of years ago, you'd be arrested for doing something like that if you were a biological male who refused to leave a locker room or went in a locker room and thought that you could do that on a consistent basis. But that's all part of the insanity. And when you take it, this is the problem with the Democrats. Any critical thinker on so many of the issues, you could look at this issue. You could look at the Democrats for the last couple of years until finally they couldn't anymore say that the border was secure when we all knew that it wasn't. You can look at it when it comes to EVs, when it comes to their energy policy, when it comes to the insanity of where the Democrats are now headed and the president is headed when it comes to Israel and Hamas. I just saw the poll yesterday, 71% of Palestinians believe that, what happened on October 7th was completely and totally justified. This is the insanity of the Democratic Party and the mindset of the Democrats on so many issues. That's why, we've stated again, and it was funny because Eric and I had we've been talking about this for the longest time, about Trump, like him or not, that he's not a radical on the issues at all. He's not a radical at all. He's a moderate. He's always been a moderate. He simply have said, on these moderate issues that everybody agrees on, I'm going to enforce the law. He's Hitler. The radicals are the Democrats on every single major issue. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Eight 866-90 Red Eye. Now's your chance to be the caller. Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He has the morning off. He returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show. So, just to continue, because it was another insane day of Democrats promoting the radical transgender movement. Pure insane. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, when you absolutely defy science, when you preach misogyny, which is women hatred, each and every day, and 99% of the Democrats, including 99% of the women Democrats in Congress, support women hatred, you have to shake your head. And these women used to claim they were feminist and they wish to protect women, and now they wish to protect men who think they're women, and that's the new feminism of today. It's nuts. I'll never forget the day that Gloria Steinem came out and said, we're feminist and we believe in women, and so transgender women are women. It's like, my God, she just threw up the white flag. And the best part of it is, liberal feminism in the United States died because of the insane mindset of Democrats saying that biological men can be biological women, and biological men, when it comes to sports, can define what a woman is. And liberal feminism failed because of it. And we had said, because really the true insanity started for at least for me. I mean, Eric and I have been talking about this for the longest time, and Eric and I said this. If you've been a longtime listener, you know this. We said, if this continues, feminism will die. Feminism's gone. I said, I can't believe that feminists would allow this to happen. They capitulated. They bowed down before the man. Oh, my gosh. It was like dominoes. What did the man say? The man says that he can be a woman? Well, then we must capitulate. We must bow down because the man says so, and we as feminists always do what the man says. And the beautiful thing is, it was a feminism, the stereotyping that men are different than women and everything. This has to go. This has to go. The patriarchy. What's more of the patriarchy than men saying we can be women? The patriarchy has to go. Men feel they're better than women. Men aren't better than women. We're all equal. We're all equal. Oh, wait a minute. A man says he can be a woman? Well, we must bow down before the man. Why? And I wish Eric was here because he always finishes for me. Why? because the man says so, and the man is always correct. We bow down before the insane mindset of a biological man. Why? Because we're feminist and we care about women. This is what you're dealing with. And then Title IX. We all know why Title IX was created. Title IX was created to protect biological women. Remember, it was Obama. Obama started all of this. It was the insane mindset of President Obama. To the point of the insanity, because it was his Department of Education and Department of Justice that put out the first rulemaking, and he stood by it. And then, people forget the interview that Obama did right before he left office. In December of the year that he left office, we'll never forget it. He did an interview where he was asked the question, I believe, was it The Atlantic who did it? They said, why do you say you're black when one of your parents was white and the other was black? And he said, well, because I've come to know that race is a social construct. Oh, my God. Which is the same thing they've said about gender, sex, whatever. It's whatever you believe you are. Understand the insanity. And remember, Obama was the smartest president that we ever had. Ha! Yeah, right. What is your degree in? How did you come to that conclusion? What science degree do you have? Oh, gender studies. Oh, well then you're right. Obama is a genius. For God's sakes. This is the insanity that we're dealing with each and every day. And it goes back to, again, perverting the law. There's a number of things here. Perverting science, perverting the law. We all know why Title IX was created. Every one of us do. I was a young person when Title IX was created. To make sure that women have equal opportunity in sports. In schools. That's what it was about. And nobody can defend it. Nobody on the left can defend it, which is why they attempt always to stop any questions on it or any debates by stating that if you wish to debate it or you wish to ask questions as what's your mindset about, well, then that is transphobic. That is evil, because you just questioning their opinion means that somebody may commit suicide. And like I said, well, then fine. If you're saying, I have a misogynist, sexist, and women-hating opinion, and if you don't agree with it, I'm going to commit suicide, as I said earlier, well, that means I can come out and come out with an insane opinion, which, of course, I don't believe, that I'm a racist, and since I'm a racist, and I believe being a racist is a good thing to be, if you don't agree with me and public policy is not set that we need to be a racist nation, and if you don't agree with me and you question my racism, well, then I'm going to commit suicide. Oh, well, then doggone it, man, your racism is justified because you've threatened to commit suicide if I even question your racism, which, of course, is complete insanity. Complete, total insanity. So I just wanted to complete that thought there and talk about not just the perversion of science, not just the misogyny and the sexism, the women hatred that goes along with it. And that includes, as we saw with Riley Gaines, the threatening to destroy your life if you don't agree with their insanity. On one end, they're saying, if you don't agree with us, somebody's going to commit suicide. And if you don't agree with us, we're going to make your life a living hell. We're going to make it so you can't graduate from college. We're going to make it so you can't play women's sports. We're going to make it so you lose your scholarship. We're going to make it that we're going to follow you everywhere so you can't get a job. Riley Gaines and the other women made it clear how they were threatened and intimidated and bullied, everything that the left claims they're against, and they're not. They're for it. and no one can explain it. They won't debate it because they know they're wrong. You think that 99%? You think that 99% of Democrats actually believe they have the moral high ground? They don't. They believe for some insane reason that politically this is advantageous to them. It may be advantageous to keep their insane base together. But it doesn't fly with the American people. And as we've always stated, we have more compassion for people that believe if they're a biological male, that they're a biological female. I have tremendous amount of compassion that the suicide rate is greater and those people should get help. We have more compassion, actual compassion for transgenders than the left does. They have no compassion at all. And then their push for hormone treatments and surgery for children is insane. And every Democrat listening out there right now, you know it. And that's why, did you see yesterday that Mark Cuban is going to do this? This is the insanity of Mark Cuban, who tries to portray these in the middle. Look, if you sit there and say, I don't like either candidate, and I'm going to sit out the election, I may disagree with you on it, but I can understand it. But if you say, I'm jumping and going to support Biden, then everything that you have done, Mark Cuban, to pretend that you're somehow in the middle of everything gets blown to holy hell. Because this is the insanity that they believe. And if they believe this, I'm going to say this one more time. If they believe their warped mindset about the insane radical transgender movement, then every other issue that they believe in, and you can see it, is not logical. There's no critical thinking involved in it. They have to lie and they have to intimidate people in order to hopefully win elections. All right, coming up here on the show, did you see Bobulinski? We said, I've never seen a witness like him. And on the 5, I guess, I never get to see the 5, but I guess Jessica Tarlov, part of the, was she part of the Obama administration? Wow. She blew it. She came out and said Bobulinski's legal fees are being paid by a Trump Super PAC. And that's completely false. And she said it on the 5 yesterday. We'll read you Bobulinski's lawyers. I mean, immediately. And that's why I say I've never seen a witness like this. This guy is challenging everybody. Any move they make, he is challenging. And the lawyers did yesterday, said there better be a retraction today or we're holding you for defamation of character because that's a lie. And we've stated this across the board on every single lie that they make, and they've got to lie in everything. You've got to confront them on it. And she had to retract it on yesterday's show. So we'll have that and more coming up. Plus, let me see, is the vote going to be in Congress sometime now? I think the vote for the budget's supposed to be after 3 a.m. Oh, my God. Nobody's talking about it now. It's not a big deal. When McCarthy it was a big deal. Get him out. Now it's like, okay, we can't, whatever we got to do, we got to make a deal with the Democrats because we don't have the votes. And that's what we've always stated. They don't have the votes. They can't do anything. You got to win in order to have any impact on Congress. So we'll get to that and more on the way. Plus, Trump and the big fine from A.G. James, and why can't he file, or when can he file, an Eighth Amendment appeal with the federal courts? That would be I don't know what the answer is, but that's a question we have had, wondering why that hasn't been answered. What is the legal precedent? Look, state of New York can say you have to put up the bond before you can file an appeal, but that's a state law. That's got nothing to do with the federal law and the Eighth Amendment issues here for unreasonable fines. and cruel and unusual punishment in a civil case. So we'll get to that and more on the way. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour, we'll have Tony Bobulinski's letter, his lawyer's letter to Jessica Tarlov, the liberal on the five. Does she get blasted all the time? You can't defend. I never get to watch it, but you can't defend Biden without getting destroyed. If you have your act together, any conservative could destroy any Democrat. To the point of, how long's she been on now? I would have thought she would have just crawled away. If you're doing your job, I don't see how a liberal can last on that show. I just don't. It's too easy to debate every single liberal idea today. It's never been better. Eric and I have been saying this for, 20 years almost, or 19 years we've been working together. So over 2 decades for both of us. It's never, ever, 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 ever been easier to defend conservative principles. And it's never, ever, 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 ever been easier to absolutely annihilate and destroy and make a bloodbath out of democratic ideas. Oops. I hope no one thought that in any way I was advocating violence.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning, I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning's show. Oh, come on, it's Friday. We got to have some fun, right? Yeah, my plans for tomorrow, I got a ton of outside work to do. So, probably will miss happy hour. I can't remember the last happy hour I made. Hey, I was totally sober St. Patrick's Day weekend. And I don't have a problem with not drinking. I only have a problem drinking. No, I'm kidding. Well, we got to find some way to have fun, right? It's Friday, right? Well, I just found out we got so busy with the whole impeachment inquiry hearings yesterday that I had forgotten that yesterday was the 2-year anniversary of Kamala Harris's passage of time word salad. Here we go.
And talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
Huh? Now, I have a special treat for you. I just happened to see this on, this would be, what's it, Facebook Reels, is it? Or is that YouTube? I forgot. It comes up everywhere. I get confused. But I like this, and this is from, it says, Is her name Elsa Kurt? This is the other. She calls herself the blonde Kamala. And, we always talk about parody, and that part of the problem that the Babylon Bee has is things that were obviously parody a couple of years ago, the Democrats have now embraced as legitimate. But in comedy, there always has to be some basis in truth. It can be 10%, based in truth, or 20%, but it's not funny as a parody if it has zero relation to reality. Well, this one, you could actually imagine Kamala Harris saying this. Here we go.
Unless I say them for her, and this one she probably would say.
I want to talk to you today about words. Okay? Now, words are important, okay, because they matter, right? And when you take consonants, and when you take vowels, and you put them together, who knows what you get? Who knows? I'll tell you. You get words. Okay. And I want you to remember that those words matter.
Oh, my God, that's great. And her laugh is perfect. And when she said consonants and went, those are the little things in an impression. Those are little details that you go, whoa, man, that's good. Wow, that's good. You think about it, you can make a ton of money doing that. But that's really good. But yeah, it was the anniversary of her passage of time, Kamala Harris's passage of time. You know something? I always talk about the fact that I'm older than Eric, and I guess you could consider me age-wise, not looks-wise, and there has been no artificial surgery done or any drugs injected anywhere here. You may think I look young, but I could actually be considered an old guy. You could consider me a real old guy. I'm older than Eric, but I remember some of the great impressionists out there, and you don't really see a lot of them. You don't see a lot of them today. Jim Carrey was great when he was doing it. When you see him doing it, but it's a very entertaining art, and there just aren't a lot of people doing it today. Maybe it's a lost art, but maybe that's why it's so funny when you see it and somebody is actually extremely successful in doing it. But being the old guy that I am, one of the things that I always think of is, when I die, who knows where I'm going to go? Hopefully it's going to be upstairs. But if I'm sitting there and I'm, maybe you get some kind of wishes, because there's things I would like. I mean, there's got to be some kind of reward. I've lived this entire life. There's got to be some kind of reward with death. Well, what would I want with death? I'd want to ask God, I go, God, can you put me just for a day? I want to be able to experience what it's like to be in the mind of a Kamala Harris. How does that thought process work compared to my thought process? And I'm serious. I'd be fascinated by that. Could you do a Vulcan mind meld and just put me in her mind? All right, maybe a day would be much too long, just for 5 minutes. And so many liberals out there, I would just love, because the delusion that exists right now in human beings that apparently aren't high. Now, I say apparently, even though one of the most frequent things Eric says is, are they all on drugs? Is everybody high? Because there is in our society, there are so many delusional mindsets that exist where you just say to yourself, how does that happen? I mean, what's it like to be in that brain? I'd like to be, Bobulinski was talking about Representative Goldman yesterday, and he was talking about, you're a liar. And, you're a liar, and you're a former federal attorney of, SDNY, as he said. And you just wonder, what is it? Because they have to know. And if I was a politician, and I'm a talk show host, and I've done this now 35 years, coming up soon, and I can't imagine what it's like to lie for a living. They got to know they're lying. What's it like to live in that mind each and every day? Do you feel guilty? Do you have a conscience? And I was thinking about that when Bobulinski was talking about Representative Goldman, who gets caught in lies constantly. What's it like to be a pathological liar as an adult? And the thing is, we all in our lives know pathological liars. And the thing about if you're a pathological liar, everybody around you knows it. They don't say anything to you. Everybody chuckles behind your back because you're built up with confidence because nobody tells you, so you think you're getting away with something, and it's like, we all know you're a pathological liar. Sort of like Karine Jean-Pierre. We know she's a pathological liar constantly. We know Biden has been a pathological liar his entire life. I just wonder what it's like. Because when I was younger, when I was a teenager, you couldn't find a bigger BSer or liar than me to get out of any situation as a teenager. Probably a lot of us could say that. As teenagers, we just lied about everything because we didn't want our parents to know what we were doing. And we would say anything in order to build ourselves up or to attain a certain status that we hadn't earned just to hopefully impress somebody else, right? So you can understand that mindset in a child or in a teenager's mind. But I still remember my dad, and by the way, just so everybody knows, my dad I will be back to see my dad 2 weeks from today. My dad will be 98 years old. Isn't that amazing? But it was my dad constantly on my case. He'd just shake his head and go, you're a BSer, but would use the word to me. He says, you're going to go through your life like that? Everybody knows. Everybody knows when you lie. What do you think? You're getting away with something? You think we're stupid? We may not say anything, but we know when you're lying, and we laugh at you. We want to see how far you'll go. And that bothered me a little bit, but I don't know why. But my father would say to me, there was a certain person we know, and I won't go any further, whether it's a relative or a friend, whatever, but this person we knew very well. And my father would always say, you're just like this person. And my father would always talk about how this adult would, it was the biggest BSer, would lie constantly, and he would talk about this at the dinner table. Everybody knows it. So in a way, we all were mocking in our minds, how stupid for an adult to lie all the time and believe that they can get away with it. When my father kept comparing me to that person, it hurt really bad. It hurt really. My father could say to me, you're a liar, you're a BSer. It didn't bother me as much, but when he compared me to somebody else that we were always mocking in our minds, and he said, you're just like him, and you're going to grow up like him, and everybody's going to know it. That hit me. And the other thing is, when it comes to doing things, lying, cheating, whatever, I know the last time that I cheated, and I almost got caught. And I was a senior in high school. And it was in physics class. And I had the cheat sheet, in between my legs in the chair. Open up your legs, look down at it. And I'll never forget, my physics teacher called me up afterwards. I don't think it was right after the test, maybe a day later. He goes, I know you cheated on the test. I can't prove it, but I know you cheated. And I wanted you to know that I know that you cheated. And of course, I immediately went into line mode, right? That's what you do, line mode. And then, but that hurt. That hurt that I got caught. I was shamed because I knew that cheating was wrong. And what changed afterwards, what changed me completely about everything is when it was time to go to college and, I had to pay for it. I did get a partial scholarship. I know I cheated in physics and still I got a partial scholarship. Not a big scholarship, a very small one. But basically I was working 2 jobs, going to college. And when I had to pay for an education, I never thought of cheating again, ever. Because when I paid for it, and this is why, I'm an advocate for young people working during college. There may be exceptions if you're an athlete or elite athlete or you get a scholarship athletic-wise. It's tough to work. It's tough to do that. But if you're not, I've always, advocated that you should work. That was the best thing that ever happened to me, was going to college and working. And I was putting in, 35 hours a week at the bank and probably 18 to 20 hours as a club DJ. Now, the good thing is being the club DJ was like getting paid to party in my mind, but it was still work. You had to be there. So I was putting in about 53, 54 hours and having to pay for it. I went from, think about this, I went from probably a 6-month period from being a cheater and a liar to when I had to pay for it, and it was my responsibility, to demanding that the department head that they have a better curriculum that would prepare me for the world and not the stupid classes that they have. And that's the difference of having to earn something and then realizing the value that if I'm paying for it, I actually do want to get something out of it. And I've said this before about work. When it, outside of somebody's faith, I don't know. And I think life's experiences, including work, can help you with your faith. But I think work, I put almost at the top of the best things that can happen ever to a human being. And I know that so many young people do not believe that. And I even understood that when I started really working a lot, when I got my first paper out. And the whole thing of that, okay, Mom and Dad, I don't need an allowance anymore, therefore I don't have to do my chores, I'm free. And Mom reminded me, no, you still do your chores, we're just not paying you an allowance. But, sorry, family responsibility. See, I had to learn everything. Nothing came naturally. You're a product of your environment and what your parents teach you. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. But yeah, I wonder. I'd like to be put in the mind of just a pathological liar for the day. And look, I know we've said this before. All politicians at one time lie about something. But it's the pathological stuff when you actually get to as we've talked about, the gaslighting, when you lie and then you attempt to intimidate somebody and make them, embarrass them or intimidate them to agree, with your lie. And I think one of the most obvious, for example, you think of Mayorkas. Mayorkas talking about the border is secure. And behind him, things are insane. Or the reporter that would say it's a mostly peaceful protest and the city's burning behind them or the community's burning behind them. And you say to yourself, how do they do that? I just wonder, as an adult, that when you get into the political arena and you're a pathological liar about all the issues that you're actually defending. And it's not that you have a different interpretation of economics or economic theory, but the obvious, you're lying about. And I'll say this for every Democrat. Every Democrat knows a biological male cannot be a biological female. Why do they say that can happen? What is it that makes it so you can justify lying every single day? Because one of the things I've always asked is if I get on the air every day, and I'm sure once, we get things wrong once in a while, or we'll read an article and that article will get it wrong. And if they get it wrong, we'll tell you the next day the article got it wrong. But I wouldn't waste my time. It's not that, for me, it's not anymore that I have this, there's this, it's my conscience saying, don't lie about it. It's that I don't want to waste my time on a lie. Why would I waste my time defending a lie? I don't want to do that. It's just dumb. It's not productive. It's not efficient. That drives me more than it's the right thing to tell the truth. It's like you don't get anywhere with it. And if we don't accomplish anything because we're promoting a lie, why would I do it? But I just wonder what it is like. I know that if I got on the air and lied every day, like you see, for example, in Mayorkas, Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden, before his cognitive abilities were in question, that everybody in your family knows you're lying. Doesn't anybody ever say anything? If I got on the air and lied every single day, my friends would tell me, my family would tell me, stop lying. My brothers and sisters, stop it. Don't do that. Don't destroy the family name. And I just wonder, do they have any pride in their family's name? What is it with the family that would allow you and your friends, your good friends? Are they really good friends? If everybody knows that you're a pathological liar and says nothing about it, are they really your friends? Do you have any friends? Or do pathological liars gather together and they all lie and everybody knows they're lying, but that's the relationships they have as an adult? It's always interested me how adults are pathological liars in high places.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want. If you can't listen live overnight, welcome and good morning. Eric has the morning off, but returns for Sunday night, Monday morning show. So on this whole thing, I'm leading to something here in talking about adults as pathological liars and talking about Bobulinski when he looked and said Jamie Raskin and Goldman will continue their line, and talked about, Goldman being a former federal. What kind of lives do they lead? To me, it's a fascinating, would be a fascinating sociological experiment to actually analyze people like that and their surroundings. Because I know that myself, due to the environment that I grew up in, which is my parents and then my friends and the community that I would live in, would not stand for a pathological liar. And especially my family, they wouldn't do it. And I always wonder about, Biden's, as we said, before his cognitive abilities went, they won't admit it, but before they went, he was always a pathological liar. And he's still making up stories that are obviously false. And they're not hard to figure out. Like if I got on the air every day and said, every year I was on the honor roll, probably if you could find the records, you could fact check that and find out that's not a small lie. That's not a medium lie. That is a 100% total lie. Why? Because I never made the honor roll. Ever. But when you just see it, when somebody, I can't imagine. And maybe there's, I don't know, is there an intimidation factor? I'm thinking that if my dad, and I grew up knowing that my dad lied about everything, that he was in the business of lying. Eventually, even as a teenager who was lying, I probably would be embarrassed by my father lying because he's an adult. And eventually, I just guarantee I would have confronted him on it, as would have the family. Well, hold it. We wouldn't even get to me. My mother would not have ever approved of that if my father was lying. I've always talked about my late mom, that the one thing, and man, we didn't get along when I was a teenager at all, because there really was no gray area with my mom. None. Zero. Nada. Right, wrong, truth, lie. And it always bothered me. I didn't like my mother. I didn't like her at all, as a teenager, which many of us go through. And it's funny because I do laugh about it and look up to the heavens and go, thanks, Mom. That I was always, when I was a teenager, young adult, bothered by my mom having no gray area. There was right, there was wrong. And when they're gone, I'm telling you, what a great compass. Because I miss my mom, but I know exactly what she's thinking of every move I make in life. Believe me, every move I make. Any topic out there, if I bring it up, I can tell you what my mother would tell me. There is a great comfort of coming from a base and an environment of truth. And that's where I learned, because like anybody else, out there, most of us as kids would try to get away with anything, right? Lying was no problem at all. And it's your parents and the people around you. Boy Scouts, everything else, all those things that we learned, those things, you might have laughed at that. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Come on, I'm 14 years old. Those are some pretty high standards. And those 10 commandments, we're just going to ignore a few of those. Thou shalt not steal, but my dad leaves quarters on his dresser all the time. If he's going to be careless like that and leave the money laying around, I'm just sort of cleaning up for him. You can justify anything, can't you? But then you become an adult, and you become an adult in your 40s and in your 50s and in your 60s, and you're still a pathological liar. I just wonder how the mental medical profession has analyzed that. And will always wonder, like somebody like Goldman who lies for a living, or Jamie. Jamie Raskin just went through his bout with cancer, and so you go through. You've got, and these things pop into my mind. You're going through cancer. Your life could end, and you know that you're a pathological liar about everything. Does that bother you? Do you look and say, I'm going to die soon. I need to straighten out my life. I can't continue on this pattern. Do they have these thoughts? And I do. I find it fascinating because it's fascinating to me because it's so foreign to me. I can't imagine as an adult going through that way in my life. And as you get older, you do think of those things. You say to yourself, have I lived a life? You go back to Saving Private Ryan. And the scene as Ryan as an old man, looking at the grave of I can't think of the character's name, but Tom Hanks' character's grave, and then looking at his wife, and said, am I a good man? Am I a good man? Have I earned life? I mean, you see those things and you go, okay, that's how normal people react to those things. Those things matter to them. Well, what makes it where you just walk around as a pathological liar on important issues that you know you're lying on? And I think the obvious one would be Mayorkas on the border, where he would actually get in front of, while the video's playing of that day of the border in complete chaos, and Mayorkas is saying the border is secure, and trying to embarrass you for not believing his lie. What goes through a man's mind like that? Because that's pathological. How do you go through life every day? Why doesn't your family confront you on it? And your friends confront you? Because I know I would. And Eric and I always talk about the fact that he grew up, most of his life, he grew up on the southern border, and I grew up on the northern border. He grew up in Del Rio, Texas. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. Both just a couple of miles from the border. Yet the morality of what was passed down from our family and our friends is exactly the same. Exactly. How does that happen? What is the culture of a family, of the friends that you surround yourself with? That pathological lying is okay and is actually considered a part of virtue signaling. Well, it's okay if you lie if you get to a particular point. Really? So Bobulinski saying that was wonderful, and he's been promoting that like crazy. I'm about the truth. I'm about the truth. I'm about the truth. Now, he was called a liar, but nobody can tell you what his lie's about. What's the specific lie of Bobulinski? And he'll go after you, as he did yesterday, Jessica Tarlov from Fox News, the liberal. And here's a letter that was written to the legal department of Fox News. This firm represents Anthony Bobulinski. We write to you regarding defamatory statements made on the air by Jessica Tarlov on the 5 yesterday. Specifically, Ms. Tarlov stated that Mr. Bobulinski's legal fees are being paid by a Trump Super PAC. This is false and defamatory. Indeed, no Trump Super PAC has ever paid Mr. Bobulinski's legal fees. In fact, Mr. Bobulinski has paid over $500,000 in legal fees to numerous lawyers and law firms out of his own pocket since 2020. We write to demand this immediate retraction on air today of this maliciously blatant lie. Let me be perfectly clear. We will immediately file a defamation lawsuit against Fox and Ms. Tarlov if this lie is not retracted by Ms. Tarlov on the air today, March 21st, 2024. He's not saying tomorrow. He's not saying eventually. He's not putting it in generic terms. He's saying, I want it now. Consistent with her pattern of previous conduct, Ms. Tarlov's comments were intended to be and are extremely damaging, making her immediate retraction of the utmost importance. All right? It's like, we want it now. Well, here it is. I'll play what Jessica Tarlov had to say yesterday. Here we go.
I would like to clarify a comment I made yesterday during our discussion of Tony Bobulinski's appearance at the congressional hearing. During an exchange with my colleagues about the hearing, I said that Mr. Bobulinski's lawyer's fees have been paid by a Trump Super PAC as recently as January. What was actually said during the hearing was that the law firm representing Mr. Bobulinski was paid by a Trump PAC. I have seen no indication those payments were made in connection with Mr. Bobulinski's legal fees, and he denies that they were.
There you go. So, number one, the carelessness. In this day and age, me talking about how I would have dealt if I was the manager, when I was a radio station manager. You lie like that, especially today. Maybe back then I would have given you one warning if I wasn't sure whether it was done on purpose or not. But just being that careless to say something, hearing something and not backing it up and making it a clear defamatory statement, man, you're fired. So there you go. But Bobulinski, like I said, one of the strongest witnesses and one of the most aggressive witnesses I've ever seen before a congressional committee. And he's not stopping. He's not giving the left an inch at all. And as he said, this isn't political to him. As he said, I think the only donation he ever gave, if I'm to say it right, was to Ro Khanna, who he's just blasting. So I'm not a political person. And it's refreshing to see that. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's not here, but he returns Sunday night, Monday morning. Funniest thing yesterday, while just looking at the blowback to Chuck Schumer and his comments on Israel, somebody did this online, and I verified it, and it's actually right. They said, well, what do you expect from a Schumer? And they went to the Oxford Dictionary, the Oxford Reference Dictionary, and Schumer means nickname for a good-for-nothing vagabond. Swear to you, not. It comes, from Germany, but that's the definition: a good-for-nothing vagabond. Oh my God! And I thought when I first read it, I said, "Okay, come on, let's tell the truth." So I look it up in Oxford Reference, and there it is, right there. I'm like, "Oh, that is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful." See, my name, McNamara, yes. You know what McNamara means? Hound of the sea, dog of the sea. And I hate the ocean. No, I don't. I'm kidding. So, dog of the sea, we'll have some comments about Mr. Good for Nothing. I'm not insulting him. I'm simply using the definition of our last names. Hound of the Sea will talk about that good-for-nothing vagabond. Coming up following the top of the hour. And also a bunch of different things. Yeah, a lot of things we didn't get to this week that I want to get to here in the last couple of hours of the show. 70% of Palestinians support Hamas. That's why you can never come to a deal, because the vast majority of Palestinians are Hamas. They believe in the Hamas mindset. And this is where the left in the United States is never going to win that one, as Schumer is not going to, plus a whole bunch more. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I'm here. All present and accounted for, sir. Welcome to the Friday show. We've spent a lot of time talking about the insanity of the energy policy of the United States and what's being pushed by Democrats. When Biden became president, he stated that by 2035, we would be all alternative energy, which would be solar and wind. That is the goal. He finally added nuclear when it was like, you're an idiot. You can't do this. But the fact is, you're not going to have the amount that they're cutting power, you're not going to have nuclear plants built by that time if you can even get the NIMBY effect out of there. But the fact is you have a significant portion of Democrats and liberals still talking about that we can run the grid on wind and solar, and if we can't, then it's time to cut back. And this as they want to drastically increase the number of electric vehicles out there, and every expert looks at this and says, this can't happen. And every single summer, and it's going to be this way again, more states come aboard and saying we're teetering right on the edge of brownouts and blackouts. The energy policy of the United States is insane. We use that word a lot, but it is. Because power is needed. Look, I went after the United Steelworkers president who came out and said they're going to endorse Biden, the UAW, and blunt with union workers out there. You're a fool if you're not voting for the party that is stating we need cheap energy. Because manufacturing unions, heavy industry unions, go away because the companies will go away with the insanity promoted by the Biden administration on energy. And if you want your jobs to stay here, you have no chance of that with what the Democrats are doing and wish to do to the grid, wish to do to your industry. And if you want any evidence, and this is why it's insane that these unions endorse Biden after what he did with the Keystone XL pipeline, cutting tens of thousands of union jobs. It's based on energy. The policy is economic, energy, and national security. Suicide, what we're doing. There's a great article in Fox News, an op-ed piece, actually, an opinion piece by Jason Hayes and Timothy Nash. And Timothy Nash is vice president of Norwood University and director of the university's McNamara Center for the Advancement of Free Enterprise and Entrepreneurship. Jason Hayes is the director of Energy and Environmental Policy for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. And they had an article, Proof that Wind and Solar Are Disasters and the Energy That America Needs. Energy policy should be based on facts, not on hopes and dreams. They're being nice. I would say energy policy should be based on science, the facts of science, electricity, and not delusions. They're being nicer than I would be. Forget the science is settled with energy policy. Settling on the best energy sources is more important. Unfortunately, the debate over energy is dominated by agenda-driven outbursts and misleading statements from activists and government officials alike. That's why they've released this story and a report card that reviews every major energy source's benefits and limitations. We're grading the grid so lawmakers and regulators don't enact policies that are doomed to fail. Our analysis, the first of its kind, takes a holistic look at America's 8 most important energy sources: natural gas, wind, solar, nuclear, coal, petroleum, geothermal, and hydroelectric. Most analysts look at only 1 or 2 factors with each energy source, usually cost. But by contrast, we look at 5 key figures or factors: reliability, feasibility, technological innovation, environmental and human impact, and cost. We've assigned a 1 to 10 score in each category, averaging them with a letter grade. We conclude that natural gas is the best energy source and the only one to get an A. Its reliability and feasibility are high because natural gas plants can be ramped up and down to meet changing demand and are easy to build. At the same time, it gets a high grade for environmental and human impact, with ongoing innovation making natural gas cleaner with every passing year, and natural gas gets the highest grade for cost because when all associated costs are factored in, it is our most affordable energy option. Now remember, the Democratic Party wants to get rid of the one natural source, the one energy source that gets the highest grade for environmental and human impact, for feasibility, for cost, for reliability. They get an A. What about coal and petroleum? They get respectively 80% for coal, 70% for petroleum. While it's reliable, petroleum has lower feasibility and higher costs with little demand for increased use. As for coal, it's still broadly affordable, reliable, and innovative, which helps lower its environmental impact, but it's becoming less feasible because of government policies. Coal produces a small share of U.S. electricity every year, and absent a major shift in policy, the declining trend is all but certain to continue. What about nuclear? That gets a B+, with a score of 88%. It has the best environmental and human impact since it's completely clean and has seen sufficient technological innovation. For safety, it's also tied for being the most reliable since nuclear plants can run uninterrupted for years at a time. Nuclear energy's small drawbacks are feasibility and cost, yet neither is inherent. Government policy has dramatically increased nuclear energy's price tag, mostly during construction, while regulatory pressure makes it hard to bring to market. With a change in policy, nuclear power could compete with natural gas for the highest grade. Then there are 4 main renewables: hydroelectric, geothermal, wind, and solar. Hydroelectric gets a B- with 80%. That includes a perfect 10 for reliability since it can generate power on demand. It also gets high marks for cost, innovation, and environmental impact. Yet hydroelectric falls short on market feasibility, and that's because the easiest dams to build went up decades ago in the locations where big dams can be located. It's hard to envision a dramatic expansion in hydroelectric power. Just the sites aren't there for them. It's that simple. As for geothermal, it gets a D+. While clean, it requires unique geographical conditions, making it hard and very expensive to spread. Finally, there's wind and solar. Wind and solar, the only 2 energy sources that both get Fs. Both get failing grades, and that's what the Democrats want to run the grid on, remember. 56% and 58% respectively. While an F may surprise some, the grade reflects the nature of our review, which looks beyond headlines to hard data. Much of the praise for wind and solar comes down to cost, with the federal government labeling them the most affordable energy sources. Yet federal estimates only look at the cost of new electricity generation, ignoring the more affordable generation that comes from existing plants that have paid off their construction cost. Nor does the federal government analyze the cost of wind and solar, which involves taxpayer subsidies, not just utility rates. We estimate that when everything is accounted for wind power can cost as much as 500% more than federal estimates. Wind and solar also get low grades for their environmental and human impact. While the energy they produce is referred to as renewable, they both require massive increases in mineral extraction. Their manufacture also relies on forced labor, such as the Uyghurs in China, and even children, such as the de facto slaves in Congo. They require significant land use, threatening wildlife and huge swaths of nature. Finally, they're inherently unreliable since the wind isn't always blowing nor the sun always shining. As many parts of the U.S. are learning, more wind and solar means more blackouts. Energy policy should be based on facts. Our study shows that the best way to pursue a cleaner future, one that is economically affordable, reliable, and clean, is to double down on natural gas and nuclear. The worst path We've stated this on Red Eye Radio for the longest time. The worst path is more solar and wind, yet that's the road that policymakers have chosen. By choosing energy sources that get failing grades based on, I'm going to add my little editorial comment here, by choosing energy sources that get failing grades based on the delusions of our Democratic policymakers, are setting America itself up for failure. We've stated that for the longest time. We've been extremely blunt on it. That's why we say things like, where we're going with the grid is creating economic, energy, and national security suicide. It is absolutely insane. Only government could say, how do we get the cleanest and how do we get the cleanest and most environmentally friendly, how do we get the most reliable, cleanest, most feasible, and most environmentally correct power sources? All right, we're going to do that by getting the worst. Only a government monopoly based on the delusion of the left could do that, and that's where we are today. But understand, the American public voted for this insanity. Solar and wind are the worst thing that we could do for energy production in the United States. So, of course, it's number one on the Democrats' list. Pure insanity. And now, as you saw, Biden pushing with the EVs. But that's the thing, too. But see, that's the lie. You just see right there, that's the lie you have to tell when the liberals come out, because we talk about pathological lying on a very important issue. Oh, it's the cheapest out there. You're not counting the subsidies. Well, no, we're just counting what we charge in utilities. That's not the cost. That's where liberals are. Well, the cost of something is only what you pay for it, not what other people that aren't getting the service pay for it. Oh, my electric rates are cheap. Yeah, but your taxes are high because part of your taxes is paying your electric bill. Oh, it doesn't matter. The general taxpayer funds that go to pay my electricity bill, they don't count. Jeez. Idiots. Idiocy. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous material shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so just, it's very, very frustrating. You know, the warnings will go out again for many, many states. And, we got the warning here in Texas a couple of years ago in February with Frizola. Why? You know, we've talked about the insanity of Texas. because of the federal subsidies for wind and solar, and there's a lot of wind in Texas. And I still believe we are the number one wind state for wind power because of the massive subsidies, to the point where we saw what happened in February of 21 when windmills didn't run. Natural gas wasn't, wasn't set up to be winterized to that level. Why? As we stated, well, they should be prepared. Well, you're not. Your thought process isn't based in reality. When the government tells natural gas plants, we're going to shut you down, there's no reason for long-term capital investment. So what happened in the state of Texas? Pure insanity. The public voted last November to basically, take taxpayer dollars to build a bunch of natural gas plants. And you say, well, why would you have to do that? Just can't companies build them and then they can just run? No, because the government's made it clear, federal government, we want to shut down all natural gas plants. Who's going to build more? It's out there. So the state of Texas is building will be building natural gas plants just to run part-time when needed. So they can't make a profit. So we have a major system that can run, because I think wind and solar can run like 60, during perfect conditions, 60% of the grid. But when they can't, as what happened during Frizola, zero. Well, you got to make that up somehow. How do you do it? So we're in this insane system here in the state of Texas where we subsidize, because of the federal subsidies, we subsidize wind and solar. And then the backup is energy you don't have to subsidize that is still extremely clean. And so we subsidize all across the board. So the cost of electricity is higher for an unneeded redundancy in the power that's given to the grid. Insane. Absolutely insane. But the state felt they had no choice. And the voters voted for it last year. Look, we got no choice. We can't fight the federal government's subsidies. We can't fight it. They're allowed in. That's the kind of insanity that the left is giving us. And I won't also, there were Republicans that jumped aboard the whole climate change thing, including Newt Gingrich, who sat on that bench with Nancy Pelosi 20 years ago in that Super Bowl ad and said, call Congress about climate change and what we could do. I'll never forget the breakfast that he did in New England with Republicans, telling Republicans, doesn't matter whether you believe in the climate change thing or whether it's real or not. It's where the public is going, and we can't fight against it. And he's viewed as a solid conservative. He doesn't bring that up much these days, does he?
The most influential radio show in the world. On now, at this moment, Red Eye Radio.
Really? Who's competing against us? Good morning. Welcome. I'm reading here. This is in New York Post. I just happened to come upon it after we talked about, again, the insanity of our energy policy and what we wish to do to the grid. Not we, but the Democrats, but that's we as a country have made that decision. But Daniel Turner's column in the New York Post, even lefties now admit closing the Indian Point nuclear plant actually harmed the planet. Those on the environmental left cheering the Biden administration's electric vehicle mandates or Governor Hochul's offshore wind farms would be wise to heed the painful and embarrassing lesson New York is learning from its not-so-distant past. Not only do so-called green policies drive up consumer prices, decrease reliability, and upend everyday life, say goodbye to wood-fire pizza ovens and gas-powered stoves, they often end up harming the environment they're supposed to be saving. Talk about lose. Andrew Cuomo, forced the Indian Point nuclear plant to close in 2021, heralded by a who's of leftist extremists from Bernie Sanders to the Hollywood elite. There were immediate and obvious problems. For starters, Indian Point provided nearly 25% of New York City's power. Unilaterally and arbitrarily taking it off the grid meant other forms of energy would take on a new importance. It wasn't as if the Big Apple residents were suddenly going to cut their power consumption 25% overnight. Cuomo was already setting New York on the ill-advised path of becoming 70% reliant on renewable energy like wind and solar by 2030. But still basking in the media COVID era adoration, Cuomo was seen as the man with White House ambitions. That didn't come to fruition. To compete nationally in today's Democratic Party, one must be a full-fledged disciple of the green cult. It's the reason Joe Biden pledged to end fossil fuels in 2020. Cuomo saw the writing on the wall, and Indian Point was a small price to pay for his political ambitions. But to fill the sudden void created, New York did not turn to wind or solar. It was fossil fuels to the rescue. Just as it is every time the weather turns severe and citizens' safety depends on lights and heating staying on. Now, after 4 years since Indian Point closed, New York now admits more carbon per megawatt hour than Texas, the nation's leading oil producer, and outpaces America as a whole. Another twist in this saga, the power at Indian Point produced was carbon-free. In fact, nuclear is such a clean form of energy that France derives 70% of its electricity from it. Naturally, the 1,000 jobs at Indian Point provided also went away and never came back. When even the fairly left-of-center British outlet, The Guardian, admits Indian Point's closure turned out to be a bad decision, the eco-left is running out of friends and advocates. Wow. I mean, you just shake your head at it, and it's just like, wow, okay, so because they closed Indian Point, more pollution, that's particulate matter, and carbon is going into the atmosphere. Doesn't this remind you? And we talked about this yesterday with the United Steelworkers endorsing Biden because of his vision. Yeah, I screamed about that yesterday. But the tens of thousands of union jobs that were lost, and the unions are now endorsing, the major manufacturing unions endorsing the person that wishes to destroy them. And they parade around cheering. I don't know what you do about that. What do you do when people promote something against their self-interest? When people promote the suicide, the energy economic suicide of their nation, their job, their industry, what do? And they know it. You know they know it, and they still do it. Someone wrote me yesterday and said, where's the fury from the union members? And I said, I know it's there, but I understand you're right. You know, it's the same power base. And you would expect maybe a couple election cycle, but we're talking about decades this has continued to go on, where the union leadership does not at all relate to what the majority of the union members in a union want. Now, the head of the USW, or the United Steelworkers, said that they pulled their workers, and that's the end. They didn't say when they pulled the workers wanted Biden. They just said, we pulled them on the issues, and the issues showed that they would want Biden. I don't buy that. I buy more what Sean Fain said of the UAW when he supported Biden and saying, well, most of our members don't. Well, then you ought to be fired. There's really no cost to pay for union leadership for destroying their own unions. And we go back a long way back on this to 2008 when Obama made it very clear, I'm going to bankrupt the coal industry, and the West Virginia Coal Miners Union endorsed Biden. And we're just like, how do these people think? You know, we talked about this earlier with the radical transgender movement. How do they think? Because Eric and I always, and we've done this before, we know a lot of you do it, you say, well, they had to be sitting around a conference table discussing this. What do we want? What politician do we want? The person who said he's going to destroy our industry and kill all of our jobs? Or the one that says, I'm going to do everything I can to keep your business going? And what I mean by that is I'm not going to, by government fiat, close you down. That I'm going to let the free market work this out. Well, we're the Coal Miners Union of West Virginia. The only thing that we can do is vote to destroy our own jobs. Who's in it? Yay! Let's destroy our own jobs. Yay! How do you deal with that, folks? We become a nation, and you've seen it with the unions. You've seen it with feminism. Well, we're feminists, but men must define what a woman is. I mean, it's pure insanity. Insanity at the border is great. That shows that the border is secure. See the hundreds of migrants yesterday, the hundreds upon hundreds of migrants trying to get through the barbed wire. They're trying to get through the barbed wire, breaking through it with the Border Patrol people there. How long, forget about the politicians, how long will the American voter vote for their own economic, energy, and national security suicide? What is the solution when the voter votes to destroy the country that they live in, to destroy their jobs, to destroy their community? Defund the police. Let's not punish the criminals. Let's let people ransack stores. What do you do when you still have because based on the issues, if we had a sane populace on the issues, the Republicans, you could sit there and say, okay, maybe Trump doesn't deliver because people don't like him. But the entire Republican Party on the issues and Trump on the issues, which is what really should matter, is the issues. The Republican Party should be winning every single election in the United States by a 80-20 margin based on where the people stand in this country on the issues. We all know where the Democrats are taking us is pure insanity. And it's not the case. And it's not just, look, it's not just Trump. They've been doing the same thing for the last, 40 years in this country. The only difference is the American public is now feeling the results of their choices. Before, it was all abstract. It was in the future. No, this will work better. This will work better. Now people are paying the bills for it. And you saw the insanity in California, where you look at the average electricity rate, it's double what is in Texas, and now they want to have a new form of billing people. How do you pay for your electric bill? Well, based on what you earn. No, you mean by how much you use. No, by what you earn. A surcharge on what you earn. What is your salary? All right. Your electricity cost just went up $50 a month because you earn this. Insanity. Pure insanity. And they keep doubling down on it. The president the other day with another EV mandate, another tailpipe emission mandate. Make it so gas vehicles won't be produced anymore. Nobody wants. The people that want an electric vehicle have gotten one, and it's not the middle class, and it's not the poor. They can't afford it. What do you do in a system where the poor and the middle class are subsidizing electric vehicles that are a convenience for the upper economic class, and you're subsidizing so they can get their EV cheaper, so they can virtue signal that I'm better than you. Where the hell did we ever come up with that idea that the poor and the middle class should be subsidizing the rich? The Democrats claim they're against it. They're not. Biden talking about, again, corporate taxes, corporate taxes. What type of a voter are you as a Democrat when you claim you wish to tax the rich and the Democrats BS you for decades that by taxing corporations more, you punish them and you're not affected by it when you are affected by it and it's a stealth tax and hurts you the most? What kind of fools are Democratic voters and independent voters that keep voting, and some Republican voters who want to throw that class warfare of let's punish the rich corporations out there? When did we become such fools to believe that? Oh, no. Corporations are greedy, but if you tax them more, they're not going to be greedy anymore, and they're not going to pass it on to the consumer. When did we become fools? Because a fool is somebody who consistently works against their own self-interest. Because none of them say, oh, I'm happy to pay the stealth tax. They're buying into, oh, we're punishing the corporation. Yep. And I'm not going to go any further. I'm not going to analyze it because I base my opinion on a meme. I have meme mentality. We used to call it bumper sticker mentality. Now it's meme mentality. Tax the corporations. That meme, the meme going around on Facebook and Twitter now about how much corporations made in profit, it's all a lie. They had Walmart. Walmart needs to be taxed more. They made $155 billion in profits last year. They didn't make close to it. They made $11 billion. And their profit margin was small. Between 2.5% and 3%. The average of a company is 7%. When did we become such fools to allow, when did you become, because I'm not, and our listeners aren't, but when did Democrat voters and independent voters become such fools where decade after decade Democrats lie to them on things like corporate taxes, and year after year you buy into it, and it's obvious, economically speaking, it's obvious based on the argument that you're going to be taxed more and it's going to be a stealth tax and the poor and middle class are going to be hurt the most, and you keep falling for it. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. All right. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Sorry, I was just reading something on X. Trump is up early this morning. The New York AG used a statute to go after me that's never been used before, not once, for such a purpose. It in of itself is so unconstitutional, unfair, and under the statute, I get no jury. I have no rights. All decisions and rights are given to, in this case, a corrupt, Trump-hating judge who came out of the up with a crazy, out of the thin air award in order to damage me politically and not allow me to use any of the large amount of cash I've built up over the years through hard work, insight, instinct, and diligence on my political campaign for president. By the way, all that's true from Trump. All that is true. That brings up the great question, when can he appeal to a federal court? And why doesn't he talk about that, or his lawyers talk about that? Or any legal experts really bring that question up? We've heard the Eighth Amendment brought up, but when can you bring the case? That and more coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.